I just want to shout out to both TripAdvisor and the amazing work that Brian is doing at CVG. For those of us, and I'm sure it's most of this room, who travel a lot, these little process improvements in places like airports, being able to provide direct feedback through services like TripAdvisor and so on, they make a huge difference in our lives. So thank you, both of you. I really appreciate it. What I want to talk about today are a couple of things that I think sort of give you some direction on where I see some of the key components in customer experience and the creation of customer experiences that that we want to have along the journey through purchase and things like that. I'm joined by Lali and Carlos from Royal Caribbean. As we hit the end of the presentation, we're going to dive into analytics and the importance of real-time analytics in measuring and being able to sort of show when you're succeeding and not succeeding in creating and maintaining great experiences. You saw the importance of data in what Brian and his team use, and it's exactly the same thing on the customer-facing brands with things that they're doing. So let's jump into this. I want to talk about three things this morning. One is scalable engagement and this whole notion of secure messaging. As we more and more use digital channels, getting away from voice, from calling, we have some brands. I was talking with Laura from Hertz this morning. One of her focus areas is looking at the actual human interaction at the rental car counter. So as we start to supplement this with mobile apps and digital communication and all this sort of stuff, what we had been calling social, but in the more general sense, simply digital communication, self-service, and all these kinds of things, the ability to scale up and absorb all of that, and to absorb that especially during crisis situations where traffic flows can be literally hundreds of times over what you plan for. That's really important. Second piece is integrating commerce. As customers begin to use digital technology more, following right behind that is going to be the expectation that I can use that same channel to purchase or augment my service, to upgrade a seat, to change a room, to do something like that. There may be a premium involved in that I have to pay for. I expect to be able to do all of that in channel. And there's some issues there. And then the majority of the presentation we'll spend on analytics, and in particular, real-time analytics. So let me hit these first two, because I think they're very important for customer experience. The first one is on digital messaging and sort of the difference between chat and messaging. You know, when you have a question and the box pops up and it says, hi, I'm Bob, can I help you? And you start typing, and then a minute later, you see the agent start typing. You know immediately this agent is handling 2 or 3 people, right? And I'm one of them, and that's part of the experience that gets created, and it's not necessarily a great experience. The second thing is when the agent asks you for information and you have to go get it, and we live in this sort of multitasking world, and on the way to go get it, I meet my 2 friends and I see them and I stop and I have a coffee and I come back, and the window is now closed because the agent is gone, and I have to start my entire conversation over again, right? That's not how Facebook messaging works, right? That's not how Twitter direct message works. That's not how any of the messaging channels that we're used to, that's not how they work. We can leave and come back and pick up the conversation, and it's right there on our phone, and it's all asynchronous, so it flows with our lives, and it creates a much better experience. So one of the things to consider is to start moving from chat to messaging, right? And then how do we actually do this? And one of the issues with this, if you think about Facebook Messenger, right? A lot of us use this. There was an issue about a month ago with Cambridge Analytica, and that issue aside, the actual impact of this to a number of brands who were using Facebook, and so on as part of their customer communication channel was a disruption to that service. For about a month, all of the apps that we're using, all the third-party apps that were using Facebook messaging were sort of frozen in place. And any changes, any advancements, any new APIs that were opened up for additional kinds of interaction styles and so on, all of that stuff was frozen in place. And while the impact was, maybe you noticed it, maybe you didn't, as someone who's concerned with data integrity, data security, scalable platform, your CTOs and things like that, this was a real wake-up call, because what it said was, you do not, if you're using Facebook Messenger, and this is not to knock Facebook, I mean, it's a great channel. If you're using Facebook Messenger, you do not have end-to-end control over your network. And as more customers begin to use messaging channels, which they absolutely are, this means your mission-critical communication channel to your customers is not in your control, right? And that, from an IT perspective, is super scary. So as you start to make the switch from messaging, start thinking about things like building messaging into your handheld and into your mobile apps, right? On a channel that you own and control rather than the social channel. Use the social channel to get the conversation, and then when we jump into things like commerce, right, you can start to do some really cool things. You can use Twitter and Facebook and the messaging services that they provide, and WhatsApp and all of these other tools. And when it comes time to do commerce, you can actually integrate your secure messaging channel with that. And what you're seeing here is an example of about 2 weeks ago when I purchased my new Samsung 9 Plus. I was home from Europe for a few days. I was getting ready to go back. So I literally had 2 or 3 days. I wanted to get a new phone. So I went on Twitter. T-Mobile happens to be a customer of ours. I went on Twitter. I asked about a phone upgrade. I did the entire transaction over Twitter in about 30 minutes. But the entire transaction didn't actually happen over Twitter. It started over Twitter, and integrated into that was this digital messaging experience where I was able to actually pay for the phone, configure the phone, all of the things where there's really sensitive data, that the kind of data that you don't want on even a private social network. And I'm not talking about public Facebook or public Twitter, certainly not. But on the private channels, you still don't want to be leaving commerce data behind on those networks, right? So seamlessly, right in line with this, up comes a secure messaging service, and I'm able to complete the entire transaction. And if you can read the conversation, you see down at the end, there's a very nice note from me, and then the agent's like, hey, it's great that we were able to do this. I had my phone pre-configured about 2 days later, and I was back in Europe, and it's off we went. I love the phone. So the takeaway from these two is, in creating great customer experiences, there's certainly the understanding of all the touch points. There's also this element of the underlying technology that supports those. And if there's two that I think you really ought to be thinking about, it is the combination of secure digital messaging and being able to expand the kinds of transactions that you can do, so that rather than call us or reach us on Facebook or reach us on Twitter or whatever, and then halfway through that conversation, okay, we'll send you an email and fill that out, or go to the website and do this, or I'm on Twitter and I get a message, even on the private channel, I get a note from the agent that says, okay, now we need you to call us so that we can verify you and take the credit card information. That's a huge disruption to the process, right? What I want to do is I want to do everything in channel, and these are the kinds of things that you're now able to do. So, but now for the really cool stuff. What I want to talk about next is sort of the output of all of this, and this whole notion of real-time analytics, the social media command center, but 2.0, not the one that shows trends and some volumes and things like that we sort of like, wow, those are really cool charts, but the kinds of things that people that are running brands actually use. So Lali and Carlos, if you'd like to introduce a little bit about what you're doing and sort of the importance of this, and then we'll go back and forth. After this, we have questions. So at this point, if you have questions for me, for Lali, for Carlos, we can take all of this just in line now.
Actually, my name is Aurora, but my friends call me Lali, so feel free to. And I'm responsible for guest experience for Royal Caribbean, and this is my sidekick and partner extraordinaire in charge of our guest experience operation, Carlos Suarez.
Hi, good morning.
So we're like a real life case study. I volunteered to be here. I don't have to be here, but we figured it would be a good opportunity. How many of you are responsible for customer experience? Raise your hands, don't be ashamed. How many of you, with that wonderful responsibility, comes social media and social care? Okay, it's pretty scary with social media because we're so exposed. Everything is out in the open, and for us, it's a very important channel where we've chosen to do a lot of our marketing in. So with the amount of engagement that we do via our social channel, And the more popular we become as a company with a huge and wonderful presence on social media, it also puts us out there as a place where people like to voice their concerns. So our social care has quickly become probably one of the most important guest experience channels for us. And year over year, we saw a 700% increase in growth from 16 to 17, and 18 is trending just the same way. So in 2017, I don't know if you guys are from South Florida and the Caribbean, but we experienced probably the worst hurricane season that we have ever seen. And we saw our social volume go from this 700% that we were seeing during the year. So we kind of take that out to normalize it for staffing and stuff. But we saw like 10,000 times as many posts. It was crazy. And we were on another tool, and we started experiencing latency. And when you're so exposed in a channel that you want to attend to so immediately and ensure that you're delivering the right messages quickly, and when you're starting to also leverage it as a place for guest information, you need to have that speed. And then once we started looking at another platform with latency as our main focus in mind, then we started seeing all the bells and whistles that kind of came with Lithium. And honestly, I think for me that, I like to, would you say I micromanage? I don't micromanage things, do I? I just like to know what's going on. I like to have my hand on the pulse, right?
Yeah.
So the dashboard that comes with Lithium kind of tells me, how many posts we're getting, how many are negative, how many are positive, how many are we responding to, how quickly are we responding to them, and what are they about? Like, why is my social blowing up? It freaks me out. So now we have the ability to do that very quickly. Well, before, I'd have to ask my analyst to log on to Hyperion or Power BI or whatever they're using, and be like, what's going on social? Let me know. Like, look at all of our positioning and give us a heads up. And like for us, I'll give you an example, which is probably TMI, so don't let it leave this room. But a couple days ago, we had a ship that had a brief power outage. I'm talking about brief power outage, like 5 minutes. And the generators flipped on instantly. But guess what? Before my senior vice president of marine operations knew what was going on, I'm like, yo, power is out on the, I'm not gonna say which ship. What's going on? Because social gives us that as much information as it does exposure. And if we're not understanding everything that's going on with our social channel, we don't know what's going on with our brands. So I'm gonna pass it on to Carlos so that he can tell you a little bit about what he sees and does and how he manages staffing and our peaks and valleys based on.
So for the for the cruise industry, this is a fairly new space for us, at least the social care aspect. We saw during 17 that, as Lali said, during the hurricane season, it was a very, very powerful tool for us. One of the things we noticed during crises and what research has shown is that consumers, the first thing they look for during a crisis or a situation of that sort, they look at their phone. So they're going through their mobile devices to look at or to find out updates and information. So for us, something that we did different during the hurricane was that instead of, we were updating our website as well, but we were putting out a proactive messaging throughout our social care or throughout our social sites, and that was a huge win for us. I mean, I think we did a study after it was done, and or not us, an independent group, and we really won in 17. We were the leader in the industry pretty much in all of our
Sorry if any of our competitors are here.
of social care. So it's been an important tool. The daily dashboard is something that as the operations guy, I look at all the time. We're always adjusting our staffing. We've seen during summertime staffing changes or our volume changes versus other times of the year. So it could be due to, there's the demographic shifts, but we have all that data. Lithium is fairly new for us. We signed on board with them in January, so we're evolving with them in this tool. And as we continue to grow, we'll continue to put more and more resources into the social channel.
So how many people use real-time analytics to actually provide feedback to what's happening in the field or what's happening in operations? And then also, so I say a number of people do, if you have questions for me, questions for Carlos, for Aurora or Lali, feel free to ask those. We've got 5 or so minutes left. Yes?
I'm going to ask you the same question that you did, Ryan, which is how do you get the buy-in? Because even though, from my position, I work with multiple brands, multiple owners, multiple everything. So it means that a one approach of I only have one brand that I'm dealing with doesn't work. How do you get the buy-in on the corporate level and the buy-in from your teams to adopt a large-scale tool like this? Because the price point for a one solution tool is different than like, we'll give you Hootsuite because that's $5 a month or whatever.
Yes, that's right. So I'll answer this quickly, and then I'm going to turn it over to you. From my perspective, the buy-in comes with a quantitative understanding of ROI. Each different department or each different brand has their own KPIs, the things that they're interested in. If you speak in that language, buy-in is very, very hard. If, on the other hand, if we understand the business objectives, we are looking for an increase in NPS, we're looking for an increase in CSAT, we're looking for an increase in margin or revenue growth, or looking to open a new market or something like that. And in order to do that, we need to provide the kind of experience that Royal Caribbean is known for, and we need to provide that in a consistent way. The work that Brian's doing at CVG, right? Competition between airports and so on for traffic. Those kinds of things can be measured, first off, at a higher level, and they relate much more directly to fundamentals like business ROI, things like that. So if you can start to speak in that language, now you can go either across function or across brand and so on, and actually get buy-in, because everybody actually has that same objective. They may not share your KPIs, but the organization, across the organization, people most certainly do share the things that drive ROI, or the things that ROI reflects.
And it's also assigning a dollar value to your brand's reputation, right? We understand that, like all of us in this customer experience world, like when we started, we were all like, oh, one unhappy customer tells 10 people. And now one unhappy customer is telling like 1 million people. So what's the value of having that, sometimes dirty laundry or something that you could have done better, or something that now you're showing how you're resolving and how you're fixing and how, as a brand, you mean it. Like when you put it out there and you say that my guest means a lot to me, like we bleed crown and anchors, right? And I think that once you assign a value to that brand reputation and preserving it, I think it's also really important to show that, to get that commitment.
Samantha is leading a think tank later on omnichannel marketing, and I know the same question will come up in that. Right? How do we get across different functions, different disciplines, and so on? Because in any kind of a complex organization, customer experience is not created by the customer experience team. The customer experience team may have responsibility to monitor or measure or provide insights into the status of customer experience, but customer experience is created by every single person, every single department in the organization. Any additional questions? Yes. And Georgia, how are we on time? Do we have?
10 minutes.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you.
In that case, I got a couple questions. I'm just kidding. Henry, Spirit Airlines. So working together with our contact center, one of the solutions that we continue to look for is connecting our social media, giving the whole omni-channel view. So the question I had to you guys is, coming from receiving the tweets or receiving the messages, how is it that you guys, or do you connect that to your contact center? And how can you get a full view of the customer case and all the way until it receives to a team member on the phones, and then the solution to the guest?
Sure. Well, pretty much our goal is that if we receive a customer on social, is that we will solve that issue or deal with their concern right then and there. We don't want to give it to another branch of our, we don't want to give it to our call centers. We want to deal with that. But to answer your question, previously, we were a cross-branded team in the call center, so we had agents who did written correspondence as well as social care. And as social care and the growth kept evolving, we said we need a focus just on social care. So we actually created a purified team that's only focus is social care. And one of the things that you notice in the social world is the more you engage and the more you interact with our guests and our consumers, the more volume you start getting. So by interacting, our growth is doubling and tripling. So that's pretty much, and Lithium does a good job of integrating with our CRM. So when we talk to a consumer on social, obviously it integrates with our CRM system, and all the other channels, all the other call centers can view that interaction.
Which can be really important for things like loyalty programs, status programs, anything in the airline industry, your status in the various flying tiers and so on. That stuff is really, really important. And so when you pick up a call or you receive an inbound post or a digital message or something like that, having your agent be able to understand immediately who this person is and, what status they are and all that sort of stuff so that they can begin the conversation is really, really helpful. The other thing that you can do with that information, obviously with the CRM integration, if you have different SLAs, right, different agreements on how timely you are depending on the status of the customer, right? Some industries have that, some industries don't, some brands have that, some don't, right? That is totally up to you to decide how you parcel that out. But if you do have that and you have things like CRM integration and other things, then you can route traffic differently and so on social, just like you do on phone, where somebody may have a certain number. It's everybody calls this number except these people call that number, right? And then they experience something a little bit different.
Did that help? Okay.
Good morning, Laura Smith from Hertz. I'd love to hear a little bit more about how your team is structured, how you cater for multilingual social traffic, and also maybe some of the things that you've done to make sure that your responses really uphold your brand tone.
So as far as multi-language is concerned, we're only doing English right now. Carlos and I are responsible for every English-speaking country, so we're kind of a global guest experience organization. We just don't do some of the languages, but that, for our business, it makes up about 84% of our sourcing. So it kind of takes care of all of it just on the English side of it. As far as the staffing, like Carlos mentioned, we recently, about 3 months ago, turned our social team, which we used to call escalated support, because they did all kinds of other things, into a dedicated social team. And we actually use Lithium quite often to understand what our staffing should be. Like, you can tell via even like the ages and the demographics of the people that we're dealing with. Like, you can see all like grown-ups like us. They go on Facebook and post a lot, like at 6 o'clock. Once they get home, they're blowing us up. Or like, you could see that there's like that with Twitter, like there's like a more even distribution, and it's like the ages are more, tend to be a little bit younger, let's say. So we use that data along with what we know, just our usual, manpower planning and call center staffing. So it's like a combination of that knowledge that we have and get with the arrival patterns of our social comments and the response time that we want to hit, which our target is to do 10 minutes. And this year, Carlos is kicking ass and taking names at like a 5-minute response time, which just means his KPI is going to change. Just saying.
So now we want 2 minutes, right?
So we're you saw that? He's already asking for more money. So it really helps us figure it out. Before, we didn't have that visibility that way, so we were kind of like gut checking, and we're staffing okay. We were doing an okay job. Now we've just been able to kind of fine tune it. And our staff doesn't love it that much because we have a lot more nighttime folks, and they don't get to go home as early. So there's like timing differentials and all those things that come into play. But now we know, and knowing is half the battle.
And that's the importance of the analytics that we've been able to utilize from this tool. So it's helped us a lot with our planning and our strategizing going forward.
Yeah, just like with your call center, anything that you're doing in any other channels, obviously the outputs of this also drives things like staffing plans, right? With real-time data. We had a question in the...
Oh, we didn't answer one of her questions, which was about how do we monitor it and make sure that we're aligned in brand voice. It's a whole lot of training, a whole lot of spot checking responses, a whole lot of QA. It's just engagement with the staff. It's funny because outside of Carlos Juarez's door, he could have 5 of his teams, but he's chosen to have his social care team like literally outside of their door. And you walk by and you hear that interaction and that banter, and it's a very collaborative group, and I think that helps us stay in brand tone, and it's just staying on top of it, like with anything else. So.
Hi, Angela Blevins from Blue Green Vacations. We have a customer base of about 250,000 customers. We actually have a ancillary travel club product that we send our owners to for cruises, exchange for using their points for other types of vacations. So we are a happy customer of Royal Caribbean.
Thank you.
So I'm going to take it off task just a little bit on the social media and all the technology pieces. You talked about having to consistently stay focused on your staffing, whether you're right-sizing it or you're changing it up specifically for special events. Hurricane season really hit us very hard as well. But I'm interested in your staffing strategies that you use, because the ability to staff up and down, we're very challenged in staffing up. Staffing down is not necessarily a problem, both in social media servicing, but the other multi-channel servicing as well.
Do you want to take it? You can take it if you want.
It is a challenge. I mean, there's no other way to say it. The staffing up is always a challenge. So what we try to do going into the hurricane season is we try to make sure that we are staffed up. And then what we've created, that what we found works for us, is our little emergency response teams within our teams. And employees sign up for this, and in times of hurricanes or in times of natural disasters, whatever it is, we'll fly them to these designated areas and put them up in a hotel so that we could always operate and we could always have at least coverage in our channel. So for us, that's helped. And the employees rally. You know, it's not overwhelming support that want to be on these teams, because obviously they have families and stuff that they want to stay home with. But we found that there's a lot of interest in, especially the employees that want to continue to further their career with us, that sign up for these little mini go teams, what we call them, and want to be part of this emergency response platform that we have.
I mean, another thing, and Carlos was being humble. That's why I wanted him to take the question. But you know, it's really important to take the pulse of your department and where your biggest exposure points are. So quite often, Carlos is faced with the decision of robbing Peter to pay Paul. If we know that we can get a message out on social and we have a broader reach, and the hurricane for us was a pivotal change in how we interact and how we communicate with our guests, right? That one incident and that spike, and you know, all the calls coming into the call center, everybody blowing up our stuff. Am I going on my cruise? Am I not going on my cruise? I don't want to go on my cruise. I'm scared. I have to shutter my home. All those things, like, we started using both our web and guiding our guests on the social channel to read the update about their specific cruise on web. Like, social became our focus. So yes, we did move a lot of our resources to social, and like Carlos said, we moved this emergency team. I don't know if you guys know, but we had like this ship that became like a rescue ship for a lot of our employees. So we moved. We literally had a couple of the social, well, like 4 of the social people work round the clock on the ship to ensure that we were touching all those things. So sometimes you rob Peter to pay Paul, and sometimes you figure out which channel is your biggest bang for a buck.
Mm-hmm. And a couple of quick adds to that. Regardless of the tools that you're using, you know, the combination of tools, platform, process, a couple of things to think about. First off, how easy is it for your agents to get help when they need it? That can slow agents down, right? Having to go do research and all this sort of stuff. So what's much better is for the agent to be able to take a certain conversation and not escalate it to someone else, right? Because the agent's familiar with the conversation, but rather to sort of digitally raise her hand and say, hey, I need help with this, and then to have someone else in your organization who's already connected, who has expertise in this particular area, look at the case and say, actually, we have a technical briefing on that, or we have a bulletin on this, or here's a way, or here's the answer to this, or something like that. So the agent is actually servicing 2 or 3 other people, and then the response from the expert comes back, and the agent can incorporate that into her answer and send that out, right? It helps to unload the team. The point of emergency response teams is really important. We look at things like dashboards, and we think about real-time analytics and all this sort of stuff, and that's cool. But one of the other things that you can do with these is you can put them on big screens, hang them in the lobby, and actually show employees as they walk in what the social team is doing, right? Because a lot of people still think of Facebook as this is kids and cats and other stuff, and why do we even have this team? We have a call center, right? And what they don't realize is the depth and the specificity and the critical nature of the conversations, just the ordinary business transactions that are flowing across this network now. And when they see that, if you also have on that visual display something that says, if you can help solve these problems or you're interested in this, please sign up and become one of these, like go-to people for these teams. That's also a really nice way to start to recruit members into that, so that when you do need somebody to staff up or you do need somebody to take over, or you're looking for experts or things like that, you actually have a pool of those. I think we're at about, do we have time for one more or zip? That's it. So, okay, so obviously we're around for the next couple days. Would love to talk to anybody, and thank you so much.